This is what it sounded like when Toni Kroos scored his first goal for Real Madrid against Rayo Vallecano, November 8th, 2014. And in the near decade since, Kroos has won, deep breath for this, 22 titles in 463 appearances, 4 Champions League, 5 Club World Cups, 4 European Super Cups, 4 La Liga titles, and 1 Copa del Rey. That's on top of his 3 Bundesliga trophies, 3 DFB Pokal German Cups, 1 Champions League, 1 Club World Cup with Bayern Munich, plus don't forget the 2014 World Cup, which he won with Germany. So when Toni Kroos announced on a podcast that he had with his brother Felix that this season will be his last, the Champions League and then the Euros will bring a curtain to his silverware-clad career.
This is farewell from the German, a club legend who brings the Bernabeu to its feet one more time.
Champions League final against Borussia Dortmund, Saturday, June 1st, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, will be Kroos' final club game. Could actually tie him with the all-time record of 6 European Cup wins. After this summer's Euros, Kroos will retire, age 34. He'll go out at the tippity top. Really, honestly, his game just seems to improve. The accolades poured quickly, and steady Eddie Real Madrid fullback Dani Carvajal called him, quote, irreplaceable. Vinicius Jr. called it a terrible day for the ball. That's poetic. Liverpool's effervescent winger Luis Diaz even named his dog, I crap you not, Toni Kroos. It's a great name for a dog. Juan Roman Riquelme, that legendary Argentine playmaker who never seemed to run, the ball just came to him as if drawn by magnet, said Kroos is a rare breed who can go out, play a game, doesn't need to take a shower afterwards, he doesn't sweat, he doesn't get dirty. According to those data nerds Opta, Kroos completed 94% of his 22,088 passes in La Liga. Honestly, sometimes it seemed like he never had a bad game, not a single errant pass. In some ways, we took all of this perpetual excellence for granted. Kroos will always be there, never in a hurry, never breaking sweat or even seeming to sprint, just casually pinging the perfect understated ball every time. Rory, was this a player sneakily underrated? Because we always had to wait for him to retire for this transcendent ether of compliment to pour in. You look at his trophy haul, so consistent. Anyone who lines up alongside him didn't matter. It was always golden. Is this man really in the thinnest elite tip of the pantheon of greats?
I don't know if underrated is the right word. I wonder if taken for granted is maybe better. That Kroos has been around for so long doing the same thing and rarely making a mistake that after a while you stop noticing. And I think that happens to quite a lot of players. It happens, for example, to Xavi, and who only really got the kind of love that he deserved towards the end of his career. Just prior to that, he was just kind of being Xavi, never misplacing a pass. Yeah, he's completed 99% of his passes and they've won 5-0. He did okay, I suppose. It's that kind of vibe with Kroos as well. And I think the other thing that unites the two players, and the same thing would be said for Luka Modric to an extent, Toni Kroos' Real Madrid teammate and partner in crime for so long, is there tends to have been players around them who steal the headlines a little bit more. You know, the eye is always drawn to the player who scores the hat-trick, to the player who dribbles past 4 people and puts it in the back of the net, to the player who decides the game. You know, as a fan, as someone watching, that Toni Kroos has been excellent, but it's really hard not to focus most of your energy, most of your praise on Cristiano Ronaldo, on Vinicius, on Lionel Messi. And I think Kroos, Modric, Xavi, to an extent even Andres Iniesta, certainly Sergio Busquets, all those great midfielders of that generation had that same problem, which was that their light shone really brightly, but they were up against these halcyon glows of 2 absolute all-time superstars.
I love that framing, Raw. That ultimately it's just a football fan bandwidth problem. But there is a timeless quality to this man, like he's always been there, fully formed. A man who used to dominate so much as a child. His PE teacher would make him play barefoot. He made his Bundesliga debut for Bayern Munich, 17 years, 265 days old, which was then a record. After an 18-month loan at Bayer Leverkusen, heard of them, Kroos was a number 10 at this point. A pure playmaker, worked his way into the Bayern team and the German squad when a young upstart manager named Pep Guardiola arrived and moved him deeper into the midfield. But ahead of the 2014 World Cup, Kroos let his contract at Bayern wind down. Story goes, he'd been told by then Bayern CEO Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, "We won't pay you any more than 10 million euros because you are not world class." Words that were meant to save the club money, but would ultimately cost them something truly priceless, because Kroos left that meeting with his pride hurt, determined to leave the German league. He was actually all set to join Manchester United. But again, as it had so many times in his career, timing worked out in his favour. David Moyes got fired. His replacement as manager, United, was Louis van Gaal. He didn't want Toni Kroos, so a late bid from Carlo Ancelotti meant that Toni scurried off to Real Madrid for a bargain $27 million, and so the rest of his career unfurled before our eyes. This is a gent for whom timing is everything. This season, he said, "This has been one of my best," saying, "I always want you to remember me as I am now," which is an amazing thing. Incredible self-awareness. Kroos admitted he didn't want to become a bench player, didn't want to go to a retirement league for the cash, wanted to stop before his peak performance years ended. He's Real Madrid's sixth most used player this season. Definitely still got it. When asked about Kroos' potential retirement earlier this year, his coach Carlo Ancelotti raised an eyebrow, as he does when asked any question, and said, "If he does that, he's got balls." But Rory, when it comes to Kroos and timing, he's never gotten it wrong. What must granddad Luka Modric think, seeing this pimply young kid hang up his boots so young?
Well, I wonder to what extent kind of Modric's fate, and that's by no means like a bad fate, I wonder to what extent that's played a role in Kroos' thinking, because Modric has become a kind of last 30-minute substitute, certainly in the big games this season. Which is fair enough, Modric is in his late 30s. Most people would have expected him to retire by now. He had offers to go to Saudi Arabia last summer, decided not to, wanted to stay at Real Madrid, believed that he could continue to play for a couple more years if his minutes were limited. And I think Kroos may have looked at that and thought, okay, well, that's the way that this is going to go. Real are in the middle of this kind of rejuvenation of their squad. They've got Eduardo Camavinga, they've got Aurelien Tchouameni, they've got Fede Valverde, they've got Jude Bellingham. They're the players who Real Madrid are going to build their midfield around for the next 5 to 7 years. It's not going to be Toni Kroos when he's 40. And I think certain players are happy to wind down, as Modric has done, to feel as though they're still contributing over the course of, foreshortened appearances. And others don't want to do that. They either want to play all of the time at the top level, or, and it's relatively rare, but I think it does happen, they have the awareness to say, do you know what? If I can't be my absolute best, then what's the point in kind of becoming a tribute act to myself?
It's incredibly rare, That's incredibly rare, to just be like this or nothing.
Trying to think of other people who've done it. I mean, there's not many at Kroos' level who've stepped away. It's not the case that Toni Kroos would have to go to Saudi Arabia or MLS to play. Toni Kroos could probably play every minute of every game that he was able to for 95% of teams in Europe. I think there's a strong case to be made that next season he'd play 30 plus La Liga games for Real Madrid. He'd probably reach another Champions League semi-final at least. The fact that he feels, okay, look, if my performance is not going to be at the absolute pinnacle of what I'm able to achieve, I don't want to do it. That is, it's maybe not unique. It can't be unique, but it's extremely unusual.
It's a handful of athletes. It really is a handful of athletes who have said, my dad always had a motto, stop at the top, who've just said, this is my moment. After this, I see small declines. I don't want those. Let's go out while it's maximal. That self-awareness, that realization there may be more to life than football, which is not necessarily an approach that I agree with. But God, he is a rare bloke, Kroos. He's a human with with insight and wonder. There's another aspect to his whole persona. He's bloody funny, runs perhaps the most entertaining Twitter account in all of football, ice cold, dry one-liners. When he hit 400 games at Real Madrid, he just tweeted, "Could have gone worse." When he announced his retirement, it was, "At least I'm trending." Then it was earlier this year when fans in Saudi Arabia whistled and booed his every touch during the Super Cup after he, let's be candid, very correctly pointed out that everyone moves there just for the money. His take on Twitter afterwards was, "That was fun today. Amazing crowd." And my favourite, head of the 2022 Champions League final when Carlo Ancelotti told the players that kickoff would be delayed. Kroos apparently replied, "No problem, we'll just win it later." He's on the record as saying that he's blessed with the gift of never getting nervous, just doesn't feel any sense of apprehension, fear, or nerves. The caterpillar mustachioed German legend, multi-permed Rudi Voller, likes to say that Kroos as being, quote, I love this is so German, I'm sure this is one word, a very long word in the German, Kroos has been peeing ice cubes since he was 18. Doctor! I'm not a doctor, but that actually sounds bloody painful. Besides, calmly, coolly, and with perfect timing, potentially winning one last Champions League final. Rory, what does the future hold for one of football's most enigmatic, intriguing, and glorious characters?
It's difficult to say. I think if you're walking away, maybe not prematurely, but walking away relatively easily and unemotionally, it maybe suggests you need some time away from the game, which makes the idea of moving into management relatively unlikely. But that said, Kroos is really cerebral. He's a very, very thoughtful individual. You could absolutely see him being a successful manager. I suppose a very kind of crude comparison, he plays not unlike Xabi Alonso, and I always think that midfielders of that ilk, those kind of cerebral, intelligent midfielders, make the best managers, or they certainly have an inbuilt advantage to become a successful manager. But then I don't know whether Kroos necessarily has the passion, the intensity, the need to prove himself that a lot of players do before they move into management. And he does have interests outside the game. He loves the music of Robbie Williams.
Is that true?
Loves the music of Robbie Williams. It's the one black mark on Toni Kroos' otherwise impeccable character.
That's
that he
astonishing.
Really likes Robbie Williams. He's a fan of one of the great British pub sports, and I can't remember if it's darts or snooker, but it's certainly one of them. I can see Toni Kroos, couple of years' time, significantly fatter, at Alexandra Palace, at the darts, dressed up as a carrot, singing along to angels. It's all there for him. Go and live your life, Tony. Go and live your life.
God, that is, by the way, these are the only two options. Well, there's three options for footballers when they retire now in the modern world. Number one, they can just become swole, the Ozil Torres way. Number two, you can become even fitter as an ultra marathonist or a crazy cyclist than you were when you're actually playing football, or you can just let it all go to crap and end up looking shockingly like me. Come to the dark side, Toni Kroos. Tune in to Kroos' last club game of all time, Saturday, June the 1st at 3 p.m. Eastern Time.